The scaler screamed when my phone buzzed against the tray. I didn't look, not until the preview line lit up. "We've booked the entire week of July 4th. My assistant froze mid-step. Another buzz. "Whole family. 32 people." I set the scaler down the click, echoing too loudly in the white room. Outside, someone laughed. Inside, the air thinned around me, tight metallic weighting. I placed the phone face down, steady, deliberate. They thought this was just another family announcement, one I'd swallow like always. But they had no idea what a closed mouth can set in motion. My name is Juliet Rowan Hale, and most of my life has felt like standing just outside a doorway, close enough to hear everything, never close enough to be invited in. I'm the child in the middle, the filler, the one people remember only when someone else needs something. My older brother Callum was always the headline, the athlete, the risk taker, the one Mom liked to brag about at barbecues. My younger brother Evan arrived with the effortless charm of someone who'd never had to fight for attention a single day in his life. The world met him with open palms, and every time it did, my parents clapped along. I became the steady one by default, the person who made sure things didn't fall apart while no one noticed I was holding anything at all. When Callum forgot appointments, I covered for him. When Evan misplaced Key's backpacks entire weekends, I was the one retracing steps. If something spilled, it landed on my side of the table. If something needed doing, somehow it found my hands. My mother, Helena, used to pat my arm and say, "Thank you for being reliable." My father, Mark, would nod like he'd just confirmed a job assignment. Reliability is a strange cage. You don't realize you're trapped until the door closes from the inside. Over years, I learned to shrink the edges of what I needed. I kept choices simple. I managed my own expenses, quietly wrote down every bill in a little spiral notebook so worn the cover curved like a wave. I didn't ask for help because help always came with commentary. I didn't mention dreams because dreams had a way of being repurposed into someone else's convenience. Still, I kept one dream tucked deep somewhere quiet, somewhere with space, somewhere I could finally breathe without earning it. The lake had always been that place. Growing up, whenever we'd drive past still water, just a glimpse from the highway, I'd feel something unclench inside me. A life where no one barged in, no voices rising over each other, no obligations disguised as affection. The day I first saw the listing for the A-frame cabin, it didn't feel like discovery. It felt like recognition, like the place had been waiting for me to catch up. I didn't tell my family when I toured it. I didn't tell them when the offer was accepted. I didn't tell them the night I signed the closing documents with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The only person who ever knew was Mara, the one friend who had seen enough of my family to understand why secrecy wasn't pettiness, it was protection. I thought I had time to find the right moment to explain, time to show my parents the kitchen I painted myself, time to let my brothers see I'd built something without their shadow on it. But families like mine don't wait. They decide. And when they want something, they don't ask who it belongs to. Which is why one preview line on my phone, "We've booked the entire week of July 4th, felt less like an announcement and more like a verdict. I didn't listen to the voicemail right away. I finished cleaning my station, peeled off my gloves, washed my hands until the water ran cool again. Routine steadied me. Routine kept my chest from tightening, but when I finally stepped into the supply room away from the patients and the lights and the chatter, I pressed play. My mother's voice burst through the speaker like someone swinging open a door without knocking. "We've booked the entire week of July 4th at your new lake house." I stared at the wall of labeled bins, gauze polish sterilization pouches, each in perfect order. The words didn't match the room I was standing in. They didn't match anything. Mom sounded cheerful, triumphant even. "Whole family," she said, as if that clarified everything. 32 people. She emphasized it like she was proud of the number, like it was a gift. Like the weight of 32 bodies, 32 expectations, 32 voices crashing into the place I built alone was something I should be grateful for. Then came the part that tightened the air around me. Boats, grills, fireworks, the works. I closed my eyes. For a moment, the room tilted. I saw it, quick, sharp flashes in my mind, trailers groaning up the gravel drive, strangers hauling coolers across the deck. Kids running through the hallway I painted with my own hands. The kitchen crowded, the dock shaking, the quiet my quiet drowned. They weren't asking, they weren't confirming. They were informing me, like I was the last to know plans made on my behalf. My father's voice joined in faint in the background. It sleeps plenty. She won't mind. She won't mind. That's what they had always counted on, that I would adjust, that I would absorb, that I would smile and let them take what I never once offered. I didn't replay the message. I didn't need to. Every word had already carved itself into place. I picked up the phone again, my thumb hovering over the call button not to respond, but to listen to the silence beneath their certainty. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but electric. They thought I would fold the way I always had, but something in me shifted precise and irreversible like a lock turning. I didn't call them back. I didn't have to. I drove north without turning on the radio. The road unwound ahead of me in long, silver stretches, the kind that swallow entire thoughts before they form. Pines lined both sides, tall and silent like they'd been waiting for me to finally stop pretending everything was fine. The lake house didn't appear all at once. It emerged the way truths do, slowly then suddenly wood frame catching the last threads of daylight roofline cutting a dark, sharp angle against the sky. My chest loosened the moment I parked. Here, even the air felt different, cooler, honest. Inside, everything was exactly where I'd left it. The blue cabinets I painted myself, the flannel draped over the back of the chair, the stack of books by the window seat. Nothing loud, nothing crowded, just stillness. I stood in the center of the living room, hands in my pockets, listening to the house breathe. It had its own rhythm creaks settling in the beams, the faint hum of the fridge, and beyond the walls the soft lake water brushing the shore. All of it felt like a question. Are you ready? I was. I started in the kitchen, pulling open drawers, checking every latch, every hinge. I needed to move. Movement was control. I gathered my notebook, years of penciled numbers, circled payments, lists of repairs, saved for another season. Every page was proof this place existed because I built it, not because it fell into my hands. Next came the documents box. Not labeled with anything dramatic, just a plain container holding the deed, the closing papers, the insurance forms, and the receipts from every bundle of lumber, every can of paint, every tool I bought with my own money. I laid them out on the dining table, not to show anyone, just to remind myself what was true. When I was ready, I made the call. The locksmith arrived mid-morning, a quiet man with a steady gait and a toolbox that clinked with purpose. He didn't ask why I needed new deadbolts on every exterior door. He didn't comment when I pointed out the keypad I wanted installed. He didn't even raise an eyebrow when I asked for the final code to be 0814. He simply nodded and worked. The clink of metal, the low electric whir, the soft clicks, each sound felt like a page turning. By noon, he handed me a single ring with 2 keys. Only 2. No spares. No copies. No just in case hidden under the mat. Everything's set, he said. Only opens for whoever you choose. Whoever I choose. The words settled into me like warm stones. After he left, I walked the perimeter of the cabin, locked each door, pressed my palm flat against the cool metal of every new handle. It was ritualistic in a way, each touch anchoring me deeper into my own life. In the afternoon, I cleaned without needing to, wiped the counters, shook out the rugs, swept the floors twice, folded blankets, lined the books evenly, rearranged the mugs, not because the house demanded it, but because my mind did. Control didn't need volume. It needed precision. As evening fell, I stepped onto the dock. The lake rippled under the gold light, quiet and sure of itself. I sat with my feet over the edge, toes skimming the surface. The cold shocked me awake in the best way. Across the water, someone set off fireworks, early celebrations from the next town over. Sparks lifted bright against the dusk, then faded into smoke. They didn't reach my shore. I watched the reflections break into soft ripples around my ankles. Back inside, I grabbed the small wooden box I'd carved to store keys and placed the new ring carefully in the center. I closed the lid. The soft thud echoed through the room. I didn't have anger in me. Not anymore. What had replaced it was something quiet, solid, and immovable, a decision made without needing permission. I turned off the exterior lights one by one, the path, the porch, the deck. Every bulb flickered out until the house became a dark silhouette against the water, a place only I could enter. Before bed, I wrote one line in my notebook, not under the payments column or the repairs list, but on an empty page near the back. This time, I am not giving back anything they take. I closed the notebook with a soft snap. That night, the house felt different. Not fragile, not waiting. It felt claimed. I woke before sunrise and stood by the window as the sky shifted from slate to pale lavender. Mist hovered over the lake like breath held in the air. I watched until the first sliver of sun cut through it, thin and deliberate. My phone buzzed on the counter, 3 missed calls, 1 from Mom, 2 from Evan. I didn't open them. I turned the phone face down again, the same motion from the clinic, but this time steadier chosen. They wanted a week. They wanted the house. They wanted the quiet I'd built without ever noticing I needed it to survive. They thought I'd fold. But nothing in me was folding. Nothing was bending. Everything in me was aligning. I locked the front door, the deadbolt clicking into place like a point made clear. This time, I whispered into the empty room, I won't fix what they've broken. They arrived on a Thursday afternoon, loud enough to rattle the quiet before their tires even touched the gravel. I saw the first set of headlights sweep across the trees, a long, confident arc, like someone claiming land with light alone. Then another. Then another. From the loft window, I watched the caravan spill into my driveway. Callum climbed out of his truck first, slamming the door like he owned the air. Evan followed, juggling coolers and shouting directions at cousins who weren't listening. My parents' SUV parked closest to the porch, as if proximity translated to authority. I didn't move. I didn't wave. I just observed. Mom marched up the steps with grocery bags hooked on both arms, her smile already staged. She twisted the doorknob, expecting it to swing open. When it didn't, she jiggled it harder, then reached into her purse for a key that never existed. I waited until she leaned back in confusion before I opened the door myself. The sound was small. The impact wasn't. "Hi, Mom," I said, voice even, looking for something. Her expression flickered surprise, then irritation, then something sharper she tried to hide. "Sweetheart, the lock must be sticking." "This house is old. It's not sticking," I said. "It's new." Behind her, Dad frowned, scanning the porch like he was reading a blueprint he didn't approve. Callum stepped forward, grinning wide, already ready to take charge. "Ro, this place is unreal. Wait till you see the boat we brought. Kids are dying to get inside. There's no boat launch on my property." I said it quietly, almost gently. It didn't soften anything. Evan laughed, that loose, careless laugh he always used when he assumed I'd come around. "Don't be weird. Mom said you were cool with it." I looked at my mother. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask why. I simply held her eyes long enough for her to feel the weight of the truth she had mistaken my silence for permission for the last time. "I wasn't asked," I said. The words dropped heavy between us. The next 12 minutes felt like watching a machine malfunction in slow motion. Mom tried guilt first. "We just wanted family time." "You never host anything." Dad switched to doctrine. "Families share." "You don't lock your family out. Callum went practical. You've got 8 bedrooms." "Stop being dramatic." Evan offered convenience. "It's just a week, Jules." Behind them, relatives began unpacking anyway, setting down bags, unloading a karaoke machine, dragging foldable tables like they were prepping a festival. Someone's child ran toward the dock. I stepped back inside, placed my hand on the door, and closed it. The deadbolt slid into place with a clear, unapologetic click. Voices rose immediately, confusion complaints. Then Mom's voice breaking into pleas that sounded worn at the edges. Someone knocked. Someone else tried the back door. Callum rattled the handle like force would rewrite ownership. Then came the smallest pause, the moment where they finally understood the boundary was real. I turned off every exterior light until the house was swallowed by the evening. Dark enough for them to see themselves. Quiet enough for me to hear nothing. They called. They texted. Mom left messages that tumbled from irritation to tears. Dad sent verses about obedience. Callum threatened to camp on the lawn. Evan suggested talking it out. I didn't respond. The sheriff arrived just before dusk, not because I called, but because someone else did. He knocked once, spoke through the door, calm and professional. "They're insisting you let them in. Just need to confirm the property owner." I opened the door enough to hand him my documents. No explanations, no commentary, just proof. He scanned the name, nodded, and faced the waiting crowd. She's the owner. She decides who enters. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard from them. That night, I sat on the dock with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders while the lake mirrored the rising northern lights. 32 people huddled on the public access down the road, mosquitoes' thick tempers, thin plans collapsing one by one. They had come expecting a vacation. What they got was a consequence. For the first time in my life, the boundary was mine, and there was nothing left for them to do but feel it. The lake settled back into its rhythm once they were gone. By Sunday evening, the shoreline was clear again. No coolers, no tents, no voices carried across the water. Just quiet, the kind that doesn't wait for permission. I spent the next morning barefoot on the deck coffee warming my hands, watching the mist lift in slow, deliberate strands. It felt strange at first, having nothing to brace for, no footsteps approaching, no decisions being made around me, just breath. Mine. I walked through the house, slowly touching the edges of things I'd built, the cabinet doors I sanded until my shoulders throbbed, the rug I saved for months to buy, the stack of plates Mara and I found at a thrift shop. Everything was exactly where I left it. That alone felt like a victory. The phone stayed silent on the counter, a few missed calls, no new ones. They were giving me space, though not by choice. Space when earned this way feels like a room finally cleared of smoke. I spent the afternoons doing nothing that required efficiency, reading by the window seat until the sun changed angles, skimming my hand through the water from the dock, letting the dog sleep with his head on my knee while the breeze moved through the trees like a quiet apology. For years, I thought peace came after someone finally understood me, after someone saw the imbalance, the taking the assumptions. But standing on the shoreline, watching ripples widen and soften until they disappeared, I realized peace had nothing to do with being understood. It came from choosing myself without asking for permission. Some evenings I replayed the moment I closed the door, the deadbolt sliding into place, final and certain. Not out of spite, but to remind myself I was capable of drawing a line and keeping it. That sound became its own kind of exhale. I didn't know what would happen next with my family. I didn't plan the next conversation or rehearse explanations. I let the uncertainty sit beside me like another presence on the dock. Not threatening, just there, quiet. The lake looked different then, less like an escape and more like a mirror. It reflected back something I hadn't seen clearly before, a life that didn't disappear when I stopped accommodating everyone else. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you learn to lock without apology, and on the night the northern lights spilled across my lake, I finally understood something. Simple. Silence isn't absence. It's ownership. If you've ever rebuilt your life, one quiet decision at a time, this space is for you. Stay listen. Follow the stories. There's more on the way. More truth, more calm, more strength spoken softly. Thank you for being here.